It was a normal Monday morning at Jefferson High School. The bell rang at 8 a.m. sharp. Students walked into room 203 slowly, some still sleepy, some chewing gum, some laughing quietly about weekend plans. The air smelled like old wood, chalk, dust, and coffee from the teacher's desk. The classroom was silent, except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan in the last row. A thin boy with dark skin and quiet eyes walked in, holding an old backpack that was stitched in places with red thread. His name was Jaden Carter, and most students didn't really notice him. He always wore the same black hoodie. He never caused trouble. He didn't have many friends. Jaden was one of those students who just existed. But today, something felt different as Ms. Fields, the English teacher, stood in front of the whiteboard with a tired look on her face. She said, "All right, class. New week, new topic. Let's talk about your future." She adjusted her glasses and sipped her coffee. "Everyone," she continued, "take out a piece of paper and write one paragraph, just one about your dream. Where do you want to go after high school? What do you want to become?" Some students rolled their eyes. Others pulled out paper lazily. One boy whispered, "NBA baby." Another girl said, "I just want to be TikTok famous." Jaden didn't speak. He stared at his paper for a long moment, then wrote one sentence in neat handwriting one day. "I will study at Harvard University and become a lawyer." The bell rang again after 20 minutes. Miss Fields collected the papers and glanced over a few as students chatted among themselves. She read one, laughed softly, read another, nodded, then she read Jaden's. She looked up, eyebrows raised. "Jaden, Harvard?" she asked, louder than needed. The class stopped talking. Jaden looked up slowly. "You want to go to Harvard?" Miss Fields repeated, half smiling. "Really?" Jaden nodded. A few students laughed under their breath. Some looked confused. But one girl didn't laugh. Her name was Amara James, and she sat 2 seats in front of Jaden. She turned around slowly and stared at him as wide, as if she had just heard something impossible. "Do you even know where Harvard is?" the teacher said, still smiling, but not kindly. Jaden replied quietly, "Cambridge, Massachusetts."
Ah!
The room fell quiet. Miss Fields said, her voice changing slightly, "Do you understand how hard it is to get into Harvard? Students from rich families don't even make it in. They have perfect grades, top scores, tutors, money, connections. And you think you can get in?" She let out a soft laugh. Jaden stayed silent. Some students looked at each other. Was this normal? Was she serious? He wasn't joking. He had meant it. "I've read your essays," the teacher continued, waving the paper slightly there. "Okay, but Harvard expects more than okay." Jaden's hands stayed folded on the desk. Amara kept staring. Something about her eyes felt different. It wasn't laughter. It wasn't pity. It was something closer to surprise, or even fear. Ms. Fields went on. "Look, dreams are fine, but be realistic. Maybe try for a local college or a community school. Nothing wrong with that." She tossed the paper on her desk. Jaden didn't respond, but inside, something had shifted. After class, students rushed out as the next bell rang. A few whispered to each other, "Did you hear what he said?" Harvard. Bro's crazy. But Jaden walked out calmly, like he didn't care. Amara followed slowly, her mind spinning. No one knew, but Jaden had been writing to Harvard for almost 2 years. Secret letters, late-night emails, even reading legal books from the library. He watched courtroom videos while his classmates played video games. His heroes weren't rappers or athletes. They were lawyers and judges. He didn't say much about it, because he knew what people would say, but he believed in himself more than anyone else ever had. Back at home, Jaden lived in a small apartment, with cracked walls and flickering lights. His mother worked 2 jobs and had a bad cough. His little sister Maya shared a room with him. Their fridge was half empty most days, but every night, Jaden studied for hours after helping Maya with homework. He read books from the library, practiced essays, solved logic problems, and studied SAT practice exams on an old phone with a cracked screen. He didn't complain. He didn't ask for much. He just worked. The next day, something strange happened. Ms. Fields pulled Jaden aside after class. Her tone was more serious now. "Look," she said, "I didn't mean to hurt your feelings yesterday. Just don't. Want you to get disappointed?" Jaden nodded but said nothing. "You're smart, but Harvard." She shook her head. "It's just not realistic for someone like you." "Why not?" Jaden asked quietly. Ms. Fields blinked. "Because you come from a different background," she said slowly. "And Harvard isn't made for people like that." Jaden looked into her eyes, not angry, not sad, just calm. Then he said, "Maybe. That's why I want to go there." Later that week, Amara caught up to Jaden in the hallway. "Hey," she said softly. "I liked what you said in class." Jaden looked surprised. "Really?" She nodded. "You said it like you believed it." Amara smiled. "My cousin goes to MIT. He told me once Harvard isn't just for rich people. It's for people who don't give up." Jaden smiled faintly. "Don't let her stop you," Amara added. "People like her, they already gave up on their own dreams." Jaden looked at her. The first time in a long time, he didn't feel alone. That night, Jaden pulled out an envelope from under his bed. It was worn and crested. He opened it. Inside was a reply from someone at Harvard's pre-college program, a man named Dean Richard Clark, who had written, "Your story is powerful. Your writing shows promise. Keep going. I'll be watching your journey." Jaden folded the letter back carefully and whispered to himself, "One day, I'll walk through those Harvard gates, and they'll know my name." The next morning, Jaden walked into school quietly, just like always. But this time, something had changed. The classroom felt different. The air was thicker. The whispers were louder. Some students looked at him and smiled in a strange way, like they were hiding a joke behind their eyes. A boy in the front row leaned toward his friend and said loud enough for Jaden to hear, "Harvard. Can you believe that?" His friend laughed. "What's next?" "NASA." Jaden didn't respond. He just took his seat in the last row. Opened his notebook and waited for class to begin. Ms. Fields walked in with her usual cup of coffee and a folder full of papers. She looked tired, like always. But when her eyes met Jaden's, there was a flicker of something else. Awkwardness, or maybe guilt. "All right, class," she said. "Let's continue with future planning." She began writing college names on the board. State schools, technical colleges, maybe one or two universities. "Let's be practical," she said. "These are places where students like you have a real shot." Someone raised a hand. "About Harvard?" The room went silent. Ms. Fields turned slowly. Her eyes met Jaden's again. There was a long pause. Then she laughed. Not loudly this time, but clearly. "I think we all know that's not very realistic," she said softly, shaking her head. "Let's focus on the schools we can actually reach." Jaden felt a wave of heat rise in his chest, but he stayed calm. He didn't say a word. He just looked down at his notebook. He wrote 3 words in bold letters. "I will remember." Was worse at the back of the cafeteria. A group of boys started imitating him. One stood on a chair and shouted, "Excuse me, I'll be going to Harvard." "Please move aside." Laughter exploded. Another added, "Oh, and I'll be driving my helicopter to school next week." Even kids who didn't know Jaden laughed. The whole room buzzed with mocking energy. Jaden stood up, took his tray, and walked out without saying a word. He didn't cry. He didn't yell. But deep down, something inside him felt like it was breaking. He found an empty hallway near the library and sat on the bench outside. He didn't eat. He just sat there, quiet, thinking. That's when he heard soft footsteps. It was Amara. She sat next to him without saying anything for a moment. Then she whispered, "Don't let them do this to you." Jaden didn't look at her. "Why not? They're right. I don't belong there. I don't even belong here," Amara turned to face him. "You're wrong. They're scared of you." Jaden frowned. "Scared?" "Yes," she said. "Because you dream bigger than they ever dared to." That night, Jaden sat at the old dining table, books spread out around him. His little sister Maya was asleep on the couch. Their mom was coughing in the bedroom, too tired to move. Jaden had homework, but he couldn't focus. He kept hearing the laughter in his head. The voice of Ms. Fields saying, "Be realistic." The boys in the cafeteria mocking his name, the classroom full of eyes watching him like he was crazy, and still, he opened his Harvard folder. Inside was the same letter from Dean Richard Clark. Jaden read it again. "I see potential in you. Don't let anyone tell you who you are. Let your work speak louder." Jaden closed his eyes. He picked up his pen and began writing again. The next day, something unexpected happened in English class. Miss Fields handed back last week's dream assignments. Jaden's paper was on top. She looked at him, paused, and said, "Stay after class. I want to talk." Jaden nodded, unsure of what was coming. When the bell rang, everyone left. Mara gave him a small glance before walking out. Miss Fields sat on the edge of her desk and looked at him seriously. "Jaden," she began, "I need to say something." He waited. "I was out of line," she said. "I should have never laughed. I thought I was being honest, but maybe I was just being unfair." Jaden stayed quiet. She continued. "When I was younger, I wanted to go to Columbia. I didn't try hard enough. And sometimes I guess I see students like you and I forget that you're not me." Jaden finally spoke. "Then why did you say I couldn't do it?" Ms. Fields looked at the floor. "Because I didn't believe anyone from here could. But maybe I was wrong." There was a long silence. Then she handed him a printed sheet. "What's this?" he asked. "It's a scholarship essay contest," she said. "Open to juniors and seniors. Winner gets a visit to a top college. I think you should enter." Jaden looked down at the paper, then up at her. "Okay," said quietly. When Jaden walked out of the classroom, the hallway felt different. He didn't know if she meant what she said. He didn't know if anything would change. But he did know one thing. He was going to write that essay like his life depended on it. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something bigger. Jaden sat at his desk that night, staring at a blank paper. The lights in the apartment flickered slightly as a truck passed by outside. His little sister was asleep again, curled up in a blanket. His mother was in her room, coughing quietly through the thin wall. The essay contest sat in front of him. His teacher had apologized. The paper was real. Opportunity was real. But something still didn't feel right. He didn't know where to begin. He had never written anything that truly told his story not like this. The next day after school, Jaden didn't go straight home. Instead, he wandered off toward a quiet side of the neighborhood near the old park, past the broken basketball court and the rusted swing set. He used to play there as a kid, but now it was mostly empty, except today. Someone was there. An old man sat on a bench under a tree, reading a thick hardcover book. Jaden didn't recognize him. But the man looked peaceful, with silver hair and a sharp, clean suit that didn't match the neighborhood. His glasses were perched on his nose. Beside him sat a leather briefcase. Jaden almost kept walking, but the man looked up. "You're Jaden Carter, aren't you?" the man said, smiling slightly. Jaden froze. "How do you know my name?" Man closed the book slowly. "Because I've heard about you. And because someone at Harvard told me to keep an eye on you." Jaden blinked, confused. "Harvard?" The man nodded. "Name's Mr. Grayson. Used to be a professor there. I work with a group that supports students like you." Jaden sat down on the edge of the bench, unsure if this was real. Mr. Grayson leaned in. "I read your letter to Dean Clark. The one you sent last year, it got passed around. Not many students write letters like that anymore." Jaden stared at him. "But I never got a reply. Just that one message." "That message meant something," Mr. Grayson said. "And now I'm here because I believe you still need help." Jaden didn't know what to say. All this time he had been working alone, studying in the dark, dreaming in silence, facing laughter and doubt. And now, of nowhere, someone was offering to help. Mr. Grayson continued. "This essay contest could open a door. If you win, you'll be invited to visit one of the top schools in the country. That visit could change everything." Jaden looked at the ground. "I want to win. but I don't know what to say. I've never told anyone my real story." "Then tell it now," Mr. Grayson said. "Right, like the whole world needs to hear." For the next few days, Jaden returned to that bench. Every evening after school, he'd sit with Mr. Grayson, going over notes, ideas, and practice essays. They talked about everything: his mother's illness, his part-time job at the grocery store, his sister's dreams of becoming a nurse. And the first time he heard the word Harvard from a worn-out law book at the library, Mr. Grayson listened. Without judgment, he gave advice, corrected grammar, and pushed Jaden to dig deeper into his heart. "Don't just write facts," he'd say. "Write what it felt like, what it cost you." That's how the world listens. At school, things hadn't changed much. The laughter had quieted down, but the stares hadn't. Some kids still rolled their eyes when Jaden passed by. Ms. Fields, however, had started acting differently. She gave him extra materials. She checked. And more often, she no longer spoke of realistic goals. One day, she even said, "If you ever need a recommendation letter, let me know." Jaden nodded. It wasn't trust yet. But it was something. One afternoon, as Jaden packed his things at the park bench, Mr. Grayson handed him a brown envelope. "What's this?" Jaden asked. "Something to remind you who you are," Mr. Grayson said. "Read it tonight, alone." Jaden took the envelope home. He waited until Maya was asleep and his mother's coughing had faded. Then he opened it. Inside was a copy of his original letter to Harvard, typed out, clean, with notes written in red ink in the margins. Heartfelt and honest. Rare. Emotional depth. This is a student worth watching. At the bottom was a short note, written in pen. "Jaden, keep going. Don't stop. The door is open, walk through it." R.C. Jaden felt something warm rise in his chest. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a dreamer. He felt like a writer, like a fighter. The next day, Jaden came to school with a fresh notebook. He opened to the first page and wrote, "This is not just an essay. This is the story of how I survived. This is the truth they tried to laugh out of me." He didn't stop writing, page after page, night after night. Mr. Grayson helped polish. At the final draft, Ms. Fields agreed to send it in with her signature, and the essay contest deadline was just 1 week away. But someone else had noticed Jaden's focus. Someone who didn't want him to win. And in the shadows of the school hallway, plans were already being made to stop him. Jaden walked into school early that morning, quiet determination in his eyes. He didn't stop to talk to anyone. He didn't look around. He went straight to the library, sat at his usual corner table, and opened his notebook. This was his routine, now writing, revising, pushing his words harder and deeper. His story was almost done. He could feel it. The last paragraph needed to be perfect. It had to make someone reading it feel something real. But while Jaden focused on his dreams, others had started talking behind his back. Someone didn't like how much attention he was getting. Someone who once sat in the spotlight and now felt invisible. Across the hallway, the cafeteria, Marcus Doyle sat with a group of boys at their usual table. Marcus was tall, athletic, and known for always being the loudest voice in the room. Last year, he was the school's top basketball player. Now, with his grades slipping and his chances at a scholarship fading, he watched Jaden from a distance and he didn't like what he saw. "Man, why is everyone talking about that Harvard kid?" he muttered. His friend shrugged. "He's doing some contest or something, writing essays and stuff." Marcus scoffed. "Please, that dude works at a grocery store. What's he going to do at Harvard Bag Books?" The others laughed, but it wasn't loud. Even they weren't sure if Marcus was joking or bitter. Marcus leaned forward. "I'm telling you, people like him, they don't belong in places like that." But outside of school, no one really knew how Jaden lived. No one had ever been to his home. No one knew that after finishing homework, Jaden worked until 11 p.m. at a small grocery store 2 neighborhoods away. He stocked shelves, mopped floors, and took out trash, all for $7.25 an hour. His boss, Mr. Lee, was strict but fair. "You're a quiet one," Mr. Lee would say, handing him a new broom. "But you work hard. I'll take you somewhere." Jaden would just nod. He didn't like to talk much, especially about his dreams. Too many people had laughed already, When Jaden got home at night, the apartment was dark, except for a single lamp in the corner. His mother, Ms. Carter, lay on the worn-out couch, wrapped in 2 blankets. Her breathing was slow and heavy. She had been sick for months now. Doctors said it was her lungs. But medicine cost money they didn't have. Jaden placed a bottle of syrup and a loaf of bread on the table. "Mom," he said softly, "I got your medicine." She opened her eyes weakly. "You work too much, baby." "I'm okay," he replied, covering her with the blanket again. "I'll finish my essay after this." She smiled faintly. "You're really going to go to Harvard, huh?" Jaden nodded. "I believe you," she whispered. Those 3 words meant more to Jaden than anything he had ever heard. Late that night, after Maya was asleep, Jaden sat at the kitchen table typing his final paragraph. Outside, the city was quiet, but in his heart, there was noise, memories, fears, hopes, dreams all mixing together into the last few lines of his story. He wrote, "I don't want a better future just for me. I want it for my family. For my sister, who deserves more. For my mother, who gave up everything. And for kids like me, who are told they're not enough. I don't want to just attend Harvard. I want to earn it. I want to prove that where you come from doesn't decide where you're allowed to go." He stared at the words, and for the first time, he smiled. At school the next day, Jaden printed the essay and placed it inside a manila envelope, gave it to Ms. Fields during lunch. She looked at him and said, "You should be proud. No matter what happens, this is something powerful." Am, Jaden replied. "But I'm not done yet." He walked out of the room. But as he left, Marcus stood by the lockers, watching. His jaw was tight, his eyes narrow, and in his hand was a copy of Jaden's essay. Somehow someone had gotten hold of it, and now Marcus had a plan. Later that afternoon, Jaden passed the principal's office and noticed something strange. The door was slightly open. Inside, Ms. Fields stood next to the principal. Holding a paper, Jaden froze. It was his essay. The principal was frowning. Jaden couldn't hear what they were saying, but something felt wrong. His heart began to race. What was going on? That evening, Jaden returned to the park bench. Mr. Grayson was already there, reading. Jaden sat down, quiet. Mr. Grayson looked at him. Something happened. Jaden nodded slowly. "I think someone might be trying to stop me." Mr. Grayson closed his book. "Then it means they're scared." Jaden looked at him. "But what if they do stop me?" Mr. Grayson shook his head. "Listen, Jaden, you've come this far without anyone's permission. You didn't need their approval. Then, you don't need it now." He placed a firm hand on Jaden's shoulder. "Your story is your weapon, and it's stronger than their fear." That night, Jaden didn't sleep much. He kept hearing footsteps in his dreams. Doors opening. Papers being passed around. Was his essay safe? Would they say he cheated? Would they accuse him of lying? He didn't know. But he knew one thing for sure. He wouldn't give up. No matter what they tried to take from him, Ms. Fields sat alone in the teacher's lounge, her hands wrapped around a cold coffee mug. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in. The quiet room, but her thoughts were louder. She couldn't stop thinking about Jaden. His essay, his voice, his determination, and her own reaction to it. She stared down at the printed copy of his essay on the table. The words were underlined in red in her own markings. But instead of corrections, there were notes like strong emotion, clear purpose, beautiful closing. She had seen a lot of essays in her 14 years as a teacher, but none like this. It made her uncomfortable, but not for the reasons she had told Jaden. No. The truth was buried much deeper. Years ago, Ms. Fields hadn't been a teacher. She had been a student just like Jaden. Back then, she was known as Tina Morris. A top student at Franklin High, a girl from a poor family. The first in her house to dream of college, she had gotten straight A's. She had applied to Columbia University. She had even gotten an interview. But on the day of that interview, her father didn't show up to drive her. He was drunk. Her mom was working a night shift. Tina had to take 2 buses and walk 4 blocks in the rain. She arrived 30 minutes late. Her hair was soaked. Her shoes were muddy. Her hands were shaking. The admissions officer barely looked at her. "We're running behind schedule," he said, checking his watch. The meeting lasted 5 minutes. She never heard back. She told no one, but that day, a little flame inside her died. Years later, she became Ms. Fields, a teacher with degrees and lesson plans but no dreams. And when she saw Jaden stand up and say, "I want to go to Harvard," something sharp twisted in her chest. It was the same thing she once said about Columbia. The same words, the same boldness. She had laughed to hide her fear because she couldn't stand the thought of someone else doing what she couldn't. Now, sitting in the lounge, Ms. Fields looked at his essay again. She read the last line over and over. "I want to prove that where you come from doesn't decide where you're allowed to go." Tears filled her eyes. She realized something. Jaden wasn't just writing for himself. He was writing for all the students, like her students who never got the chance to try. Meanwhile, Jaden sat in his next class, tapping his pen nervously. He hadn't heard anything about the essay submission yet. He didn't know what Ms. Fields had said to the principal. He didn't know if Marcus was involved, but he could feel the tension even. Amara noticed. She passed him a sticky note on his desk. "Did something happen?" Jaden looked at her and nodded slightly. That was all she needed to see. After school, Jaden was about to leave when Ms. Fields called him from the doorway. "Jaden, can we talk for a moment?" He hesitated, then walked back inside the empty classroom. Ms. Fields closed the door behind them. "I want to tell you something," she said, her voice soft. Jaden nodded, waiting. "I wasn't fair to you before," she continued. "When you said you wanted to go to Harvard, I laughed. But not because I didn't believe in you, because I didn't believe in myself." Jaden looked confused. Ms. Fields took a deep breath. "I once wanted to go to Columbia. I worked hard, just like you. But life got in the way, and I never got the chance. After that, I stopped dreaming." Jaden's eyes softened. "I'm not proud of how I treated you," she said, "but your essay reminded me of who I used to be." She handed him a folder. Inside was a signed submission form for the contest. It's with her personal recommendation letter. Jaden stared at it. "I told the principal your essay is one of the best I've ever read," she said. "And I meant it." Jaden's voice was quiet. "Thank you." "No," she said. "Thank you, Jaden. You reminded me that it's never too late to believe again." As Jaden walked home, the wind felt a little warmer. The sky looked a little brighter. For the first time since he started this journey, he didn't feel like he was fighting alone. But across the street, sitting in a parked car, Marcus watched him from behind the wheel. He gripped the steering wheel tightly. He had heard about the essay submission. He had seen Ms. Fields hand Jaden that folder, and his anger was growing that night. Jaden arrived home and found his mom waiting up a small bowl of soup on the table. She smiled. "How was school?" He smiled back. "Good. Really good." He showed her the signed form. She stared at it, then hugged him tightly. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. Jaden sat down, ate his soup slowly, and opened his notebook again. He wasn't just writing for Harvard. Anymore, he was writing for his mother, for Amara, for Ms. Fields, and for himself. The next morning, something strange happened. When Jaden opened his locker, a piece of paper fell out. He picked it up and read, "Stay in your lane, Harvard boy, or else." There was no name, no signature, but Jaden knew exactly who it was from. Jaden stared at the note in his hand. His fingers were stiff. His heartbeat thumped loud in his ears. "Stay in your lane, Harvard boy," or else it was printed on plain white paper. No name, no handwriting. Just a threat. He looked around the hallway. Students passed by like everything was normal. No one seemed to notice the paper in his hand or the chill that had just run through his body. Jaden folded the note, placed it in his pocket, and closed. His locker, he didn't say a word. All day the note haunted him in class. He couldn't focus. In the lunchroom, he barely touched his food. Even Amara noticed. "Hey," she whispered. "You okay?" Jaden looked at her, thinking for a moment. Then he slid the folded note across the table. She read it silently. Her eyes widened. "Who gave you this?" "I don't know," Jaden said, "but I think it was Marcus." Amara's face turned serious. "He's jealous. He's been talking. About you. Saying you're acting better than everyone. What? Jaden looked down. I never wanted to be better. I just wanted to try. After school, Jaden didn't go home right away. Instead, he walked to the park, the same old bench under the tree. Mr. Grayson was already there, as usual. Reading a leather-bound book with gold writing, Jaden sat down and handed him the note. Mr. Grayson read it, frowned, then folded it in half. There's always someone who fears your light, he said, because it shows them how small their own flame has become. Jaden sighed. What if he tries something worse? Mr. Grayson looked at him. Then you rise higher. You don't stop. You don't let anyone pull you down. Jaden stayed silent. Then Mr. Grayson reached into his briefcase and pulled out an envelope. This came for you. Jaden blinked. For me? Mr. Grayson nodded. It arrived at my address this morning. Jaden looked at the envelope. On the top left corner were the words, Harvard University Office of Undergraduate Programs, Cambridge. Mahay's hands trembled slightly. Open. It, Mr. Grayson said. Jaden tore the envelope gently and pulled out the letter. His eyes scanned the first line. Dear Jaden Carter, we recently received your submission for the National Essay Contest. After reading your entry, we were deeply moved by your story, your courage, and your dedication to learning. Though contest results are still pending, I wanted to personally acknowledge your voice. I see potential in you, not just as a student, but as a future leader. Keep writing, keep fighting, and never stop believing in yourself. Sincerely, Dean Richard Clark, Office of Admissions, Harvard University. Jaden stared at the letter for a long time. His mouth didn't move, but his eyes were full. Mr. Grayson smiled. They remember you. That's rare. Jaden looked up. But I haven't even won the contest yet. Mr. Grayson nodded. It's not the point. The fact that a dean from Harvard wrote to you personally, that means something. Jaden folded the letter slowly, carefully. Should I show Ms. Fields? He asked. Maybe, Mr. Grayson replied. But more importantly, keep it safe. This letter is proof. Proof that you've already left a mark. At home, Jaden placed the letter inside a folder and tucked it deep into his drawer. He didn't want to risk losing it. His mother came into the room, her cough quieter now. You're working again? She asked. Jaden nodded, just going over the essay again, for the final submission. She smiled. You always did work harder than anyone else, even as a little boy. Jaden sat back and asked, Did you ever think I could do it? Get into a place like Harvard? She looked at him softly. I knew from the moment you learned to read. You didn't just read books. You devoured them. Jaden smiled. I believe in you, Jay, she said, placing a gentle hand on his head. More than anyone ever has. The next day at school, Jaden was different. He walked taller. He looked Marcus in the eyes when they passed in the hallway. He didn't speak, but he didn't look away either. Marcus smirked, but said nothing. Jaden knew now. Marcus could hate him, threaten him, even try to ruin him, but he could never be him. Because Jaden had something Marcus didn't, a reason that was bigger than pride. At lunch, Ms. Fields pulled Jaden aside. I heard from the program, she said. They confirmed. They received your entry. And she paused. They also said one of the judges shared it with Harvard's Dean of Admissions. Jaden smiled faintly. Yeah. I got a letter last night. Ms. Fields' eyes lit up. They wrote to you directly. Jaden nodded. It's not an offer or anything, but it felt real. Ms. Fields looked proud. That's more than most people ever get. But as Jaden walked back to his table, he noticed something strange. His backpack was unzipped. His folder, where he kept his essay copy and the Harvard letter, was gone. He froze. His heart began to pound. He checked again. Everything else was there. But not the folder. Not the proof. Not the letter. He spun around and scanned the cafeteria. Marcus was gone. So was his group. Jaden ran out into the hallway, just around the corner. He spotted Marcus leaning against a locker holding something in his hands. The brown folder. Jaden marched up to him. "Give it back," he said. Marcus smirked. "Why? Scared someone will read it and realize it's all a lie." "It's my story," Jaden said. "It's not a lie." Marcus shrugged. "Funny how someone like you thinks a letter from Harvard changes who you are." Jaden stared at him. "It doesn't change who I am. It just proves I never needed your approval." Marcus threw the folder at him. "Good luck, Harvard," and he walked away. Jaden picked up the folder, dusted it off, checked the contents. The essay was still there, so was the letter. Nothing was damaged, but his hands were, still shaking that. Evening, Amara walked home with Jaden. "I saw him take your bag," she said. "I wanted to stop him, but—" Jaden shook his head. "It's okay. I got it back." "Why is he like this?" she asked. "Because he's scared," Jaden replied. "Of being forgotten, of not being enough." Amara looked at him. I've been scared too," Jaden said. "But I'm still walking." At home, Jaden made 2 extra copies of the letter and essay. One went in his drawer, one with his mom, one with Mr. Grayson. He had learned something important. Dreams were fragile, but proof made them stronger. Monday morning arrived with a heavy sky. The clouds hung low and gray. The air was thick. Even the birds outside Jefferson High School were silent. Jaden walked through the school gates, his backpack zipped tight. This time, the folder with his essay and the Harvard letter stayed home safe. In a drawer behind a book only he and his mother knew about. But the real storm wasn't in the sky, it was waiting. Inside room 203, Ms. Fields had barely begun writing on the board when tension crept through the classroom. Whispers floated like smoke. Eyes shifted. Chairs creaked more than usual, and then Marcus entered. Late, he walked in slowly, with the same smug grin. His eyes locked on Jaden and didn't move. Ms. Fields paused, watching him. "You're late?" "Again," Marcus replied. He replied casually, even though everyone knew he walked to school. She didn't argue. She simply turned back to the board and said, "Today, we'll read and discuss 3 student essays. Volunteers only." The room got quiet. Jaden's heart started to pound. He hadn't planned on reading his out loud, not after everything, but something inside told him. Maybe he should. Maybe it was time. Before anyone could speak, Marcus raised his hand. "I'd like to read one," he said, smiling wide. Ms. Fields looked surprised. "You finished your essay?" "Not mine," Marcus said. "I brought it." "Good one." He pulled a copy of Jaden's essay from his binder. Jaden's eyes widened. Amara sat up straight. Ms. Fields froze. "Where did you get that?" "Was in the hallway last week," Marcus lied. "Just lying on the ground. No name. I thought it was worth sharing." Ms. Fields glanced at Jaden. He nodded slowly, giving silent permission. Marcus stood and began reading. His voice was flat, cold, like he didn't care about the words. He skipped parts, laughed at some sentences, misread others. "My sister believes in my dream. My mother is the reason I keep going." Marcus paused, then said loudly, "Touching, right?" Before continuing. The class stayed silent. Some students looked confused, some awkward. Others leaned in, curious. When he reached the final line, "I want to prove that where you come from doesn't decide where you're allowed to go." He folded the paper and said, "Pretty dramatic, huh?" No one laughed. Ms. Fields stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Thank you, Marcus. That's enough." He shrugged and sat down. Jaden stared at the desk. Then slowly he raised his hand. Ms. Fields nodded. "Yes, Jaden, I'd like to read my own version," he said clearly. "The full one." Marcus snorted. "Same thing." Jaden stood up. "No," he said. "It's not the same, because you didn't live it." "I did," as Jaden read. The classroom transformed. The students who once ignored him were now silent. Even Marcus didn't speak. Jaden's voice didn't shake. His hands didn't tremble. He read with power, with emotion, with truth. Every sentence landed like a heartbeat. When he finished, the room stayed quiet for several seconds. Then someone clapped. Then another. then the entire class. Ms. Field stood by the window, wiping the corner of her eye. After class, a few students came up to him. "I didn't know your mom was sick," one said. "That was powerful, man," another whispered. "You're gonna win." "I just know it," Amara added, smiling. Jaden felt something shift, not just in the classroom but in himself, but outside the door. Marcus stood leaning against the wall, arms crossed. "You think that applause means anything?" he muttered. As Jaden passed, Jaden stopped. "No," he said. "I think my work means everything." Then he walked away. Marcus stared after him, jaw tight. At lunch, Jaden found Ms. Fields waiting in the hallway. "You handled that with class," she said. "He tried to embarrass you, but you didn't let him." Jaden shrugged. "He doesn't scare me anymore." She smiled, then leaned closer. "I sent a copy of your essay to the school district. They asked for a sample from our school." "That's okay." Jaden blinked. "You did?" She nodded. "The regional board might publish it in their education magazine. A lot of people could read it." Jaden felt his breath catch. This dream was growing bigger than he had ever imagined. That night at home, Jaden told his mother everything. She reached for his hand, eyes glossy. "I told you," she whispered. "Your story was meant to be heard." Maya hugged him tightly and said, "Does this mean we can visit Harvard one day?" Jaden smiled. "One day, yeah, all three of us." The next morning, Jaden opened his. Locker. Inside was a yellow sticky note. This time, no threat. Just 5 words written in shaky handwriting. "I'm sorry." "You deserved it." It's no name, but Jaden knew. Even Marcus had heard him, and somewhere deep inside, and maybe even he was starting to believe. Saturday morning started like any other for Jaden. He woke up early, fixed breakfast for Maya, and helped his mom with her medication. Then he sat down at the kitchen table with his notebook. Planning to write more Yvonne, though, the essay contest was already submitted. Writing had become part of him now. A way to stay focused, a way to stay free. Just as he picked up his pen, his phone buzzed. Unknown number, he almost ignored it. But something told him to answer. "Hello?" "Ow," Jaden said quietly. "Is this Jaden Carter?" asked a calm male voice. "Yes, this is Lisa from the Office of Undergraduate Outreach at Harvard University. I'm calling on behalf of Dean Richard Clark. Do you have a moment to speak?" Jaden stood up slowly, heart racing. Yes, of course. "Great. I wanted to inform you that your essay has been shortlisted by the national panel, and you've been selected for a private Zoom interview with Dean Clark himself." Jaden froze. "Wait, what?" "Yes," the woman continued. "He read your piece and insisted on meeting you himself before the official results are even announced." Jaden couldn't speak. The woman laughed gently. "Take a deep breath, Jaden. You're doing great. The interview will be next Friday. We'll email the link and schedule." Jaden managed a small "thank you." After she hung up, he just stood there staring at the phone. Harvard Dean Clark. An interview with him. "Mom," Jaden called out, running into the living room. "You won't believe what just happened." His mother was sitting on the couch, sipping warm tea. She looked up. "What is it, baby?" "I got a call from Harvard. The actual Harvard." Her eyes widened. "They want me to meet with the dean. He read my essay and asked for me by name." His mother pressed a hand to her chest, tears filling her eyes. "Jay, that's more than a dream now." Jaden nodded, still in shock. I don't even have a proper shirt for an interview," she smiled. "Don't worry, we'll make it work." Later that day, Jaden went to the park to meet Mr. Grayson. When he told him the news, the old man simply smiled and said, "I told you your story was powerful." "Harvard is listening, but what do I say?" Jaden asked. "What if I mess it up?" Mr. Grayson leaned forward. "Be real. Be you. That's the only thing you've done perfectly from the beginning." Jaden nodded slowly. "I need to prepare. I'll help you," Mr. Grayson said. "Start with what matters most, why you want this. Not the college, not the name, the why." Jaden took out his notebook, and together they began to shape his story into spoken words. Back at school on Monday. News traveled fast. Someone had overheard Jayden telling Amara about the Harvard call. By lunchtime, half the school knew, some were impressed, some were surprised, but one person wasn't saying anything. Marcus, he stayed quiet in the hallway, headphones in, eyes down. At one point, Jayden passed by and nodded at him, to Jayden's surprise. Nodded back. It wasn't friendly, but it wasn't hate. Either it was something in between respect. Maybe on Tuesday, Ms. Fields made an announcement in class. I just want to recognize one of our students. Jayden Carter has been shortlisted nationally for his. SN will be speaking with Harvard's Dean of Admissions this week. The room went still. Amara clapped first, then a few others joined. Even students who didn't talk to Jayden much. Before, Jayden looked down, embarrassed but proud. Ms. Fields smiled and said, "Let's show him what support looks like." After class, she pulled Jayden aside. "I have something for you." She handed him a small white box. He opened it too. "Find a brand new blue dress shirt and tie." Jayden looked up, surprised. "I used a teacher grant," she said. "It's yours. Wear it proud." He didn't know what to say. "Thank you," he finally whispered. That evening at home, Jayden stood in front of the mirror, trying on the shirt. His mom helped him adjust the tie. "You look like someone important," she said. "I don't feel like it yet," Jayden replied. "But you are," she whispered. "Not because of Harvard, because you never gave up." Wednesday and Thursday were a blur of practice. Mr. Grayson drilled him with questions. "Why do you want to attend Harvard? What's one moment that shaped who you are? How will you use your education to help others?" Jayden answered again and again. Each time, he got stronger, clearer, braver. Finally, Friday came. Jayden woke up early. He helped Maya get ready for school, helped his mom take her medicine. Then he got dressed and checked the email for the Zoom link. 10 a.m. Laptop open. Shirt ironed. Tie straight. His mom sat nearby, holding her phone, recording everything silently. At exactly 10 o'clock, the screen flickered in. Dean Richard Clark appeared. A kind face. Gray beard. Sharp eyes behind glasses. "Jayden Carter," he said warmly. "I've been waiting to meet you." Jayden smiled nervously. "Thank you for having me, sir." "Young man," the dean said, "your essay shook something in me. It reminded me why I got into education. You wrote with pain, but also with hope." Jayden sat up straighter. "Tell me," the dean asked, "what drives you?" Jayden took a deep breath. Then he spoke from his heart. "I grew up in a small apartment with my mom and little sister. My mom's been sick for a while, and I work part-time to help. I never thought anyone would care about my story. I just wanted to write it down before I forgot who I was." He paused. "I want to go to Harvard because I want to build something with my life. It's not just for me, but for people like my mom who never got the chance. For kids in schools like mine. For people who are told they'll never make it." Dean Clark smiled slowly. "You already have made it," he said softly. The interview lasted 30 minutes. When it ended, Jayden closed his laptop, burst into tears. His mom hugged him tight. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. No matter what happens next, something was going to happen next. Because later that evening, Jayden got another email. Subject line, "Essay contest results. URG&T." Jayden stared at the email subject line on his phone screen. "Essay contest results." URG&T. His thumb hovered over the message. His heart beat so loudly it echoed in his ears. He stood frozen in the hallway of his apartment. Maya was watching cartoons in the living room. His mom was lying on the couch, sipping warm tea. Jayden took a deep breath. Then he tapped it. "Dear Jayden Carter, congratulations. Out of more than 5,000 applicants across the country, your essay, The Weight of Silence, has been selected. As one of the top 3 winners of the National Youth Writers Challenge, as a finalist, you will be flown to Boston, Massachusetts, for an exclusive tour of Harvard University, including a special luncheon with faculty and students. Your story moved us deeply, and we are honored to share your voice with the world. Please confirm your availability by Monday morning." With admiration, the NYWC committee, Jayden's mouth dropped open. He couldn't speak. "Jaden," his mom called. "Everything okay?" Jaden walked into the room slowly, holding his phone. Like it was gold. He handed it to her. "Read this." She adjusted her glasses and started reading. Her eyes widened. Mouth trembled. By the end, she was crying silently. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." Jaden knelt beside her and hugged her tightly. "I didn't do it." Alone, that night, they celebrated with a small cake from the corner store. Nothing fancy. Just chocolate and candles. Maya made a paper crown that said Harvard King and made Jaden wear it during dinner. They laughed together. They smiled more than they had in months. And for once, their tiny apartment didn't feel small. It felt full. The next morning, Jaden walked into school early. He wanted to tell Ms. Fields first, but when he entered room 203, he froze. Someone had already written something on the whiteboard. "Congratulations, Jaden." Beneath it were dozens of tiny notes stuck to the board, from classmates, from younger students, even from a few teachers. "Your words gave me courage. You made our school proud. My brother wants to be like you. Go make history, Jaden." Jaden stepped forward, reading each one. He couldn't believe it. All these people watching, supporting. Was this really happening? Ms. Fields appeared in the doorway holding a cup of coffee. She smiled. "Guess the news is out." Jaden turned. To her, "I didn't expect all this." "You earned it," she said. "Every word." "I never thought they'd choose me," he admitted. "They didn't just choose your essay," she said. "They chose you." She handed him a small envelope. "What's this?" "Something I wrote years ago," she said. "When I applied to Columbia, I never sent it. I thought you should have it." Jaden opened the envelope later that day. It was her own essay titled, "Why I Still Believe." He smiled reading it. They weren't so different after all. At lunch, Jaden sat with Amara under their usual tree. She looked at him and grinned. "So, when do you leave for Harvard?" "Next Friday," he said. "Plane tickets already in my inbox." She nodded. "You nervous?" "Terrified," he laughed, "but excited too." "You have a speech ready?" Jaden sighed. "Not yet. They want me to share something short at the luncheon. Just a few words." "I'll figure it out," she said. "You always do." That afternoon, Jaden went to find Mr. Grayson. He wasn't at the park bench. Instead, was a sealed letter sitting on the bench with Jaden's name on it. He opened it slowly. "Jaden, I knew you would get here. I've watched hundreds of students chase this dream, but very few carry the kind of fire you have. Harvard is not just a school, it's a door. And you, my boy, just unlocked it. Walk through it with pride. I'll be watching from afar." Mr. Grayson. Jaden sat down, holding the letter. He didn't know where Mr. Grayson had gone, but somehow, he knew their time was complete. At home that night, Jaden started writing his Harvard speech, but the words didn't come easily. He kept thinking, what could I say that mattered? He opened his notebook and stared at a blank page. Then he wrote, "To everyone who said I couldn't, thank you. Because now, I'm not just walking into Harvard. I'm carrying everyone who was ever told they weren't good enough. I speak for the forgotten, for the fighters, for the kids with empty fridges and quiet dreams. We belong here too." He stopped writing. That was it. That was the truth. But far away, in a quiet office, someone else had just read Jaden's file. A man in a suit. A man who didn't smile often. A man with power. He tapped his pen against the desk and said quietly, "Get me that boy's file again. I want to know more." Something about Jaden's story wasn't just inspiring. It was starting to look important. The morning of the flight felt like a dream. Jaden stood in front of the mirror, dressed in the blue shirt Ms. Fields gave him, the tie straight and clean. His shoes were polished, borrowed from a neighbor down the hall who said, "Make us proud, kid." His mom helped fix his collar and wiped a tear from her eye. "You look like you already belong there," she whispered. Jaden gave her a nervous smile. "I don't even know what to expect." "You don't have to," she said. "You're ready." Maya came running out of the bedroom with a tiny envelope she had made out of notebook paper. "Here," she said. "Don't open it till you're on the plane."
How?
Jaden took it gently and hugged her tight. Then he picked up his bag and stepped Out the door, the taxi ride to the airport was quiet. Jaden stared out the window, watching the city pass by. The same streets he walked every day, the same corners where he saw people struggle. He wasn't just leaving home for a weekend, he was stepping into a different world, and he didn't want to forget where he came from. At the airport, Jaden clutched his ticket tightly. "First time flying?" the woman at the check-in desk asked with a kind smile. "Yeah." He nodded. "You're going to do great," she said, then handed him a small Harvard pin. "For good luck." Jaden smiled and pinned it to his shirt. When he found his seat on the plane, he remembered Maya's note. He opened it carefully. Inside was a drawing. Stick figures, Jaden. Maya and their mom standing in front of a big red building. That said Harvard on the top. At the bottom were the words, written in Maya's big, shaky handwriting, "You are already a winner." Jaden blinked hard and pressed the note to his chest. He didn't care how many awards or trophies he ever got. Nothing would beat this. The plane took off. Jaden looked out the window, watching the clouds pass. His thoughts swirled faster than the engines. What if he didn't fit in? What if the students were too rich, too smart? What if they looked at him like he didn't belong? But then he remembered what Mr. Grayson had said. You don't walk into the room trying to blend in. You walk in knowing you deserve to be there. Jaden took a deep breath and closed his eyes. When the plane landed in Boston, a woman with a clipboard was waiting at the gate. "Jaden Carter," she asked. He raised his hand. "Welcome to Harvard Weekend," she said with a big smile. "We're so excited to have you." She handed him a guest badge, a folder, and a red backpack with the Harvard logo on it. "You'll be staying at Dunster House. You've got a campus tour, lunch with faculty, and tomorrow your speech at the luncheon." Jaden nodded, trying to hide his nerves. "Let's show you where the magic happens," she said. As they drove through the city, Jaden stared at the tall trees, old buildings, and wide stone paths. And then there it was, Harvard University. Big, red bricks, ancient gates, ivy on the walls. Jaden's heart raced. He had seen it in pictures, but this was different. This was real. This was now inside Dunster House. Jaden unpacked his clothes and placed Maya's note by the lamp on the desk. He sat on the edge of the bed and looked around. Clean sheets, bookshelves, a desk. It wasn't fancy, but to him, it was everything. He pulled out his notebook and wrote one line at the top of a fresh page, "From aisle 3 to Ivy League." He smiled to himself. That evening, he joined a group of other contest winners for dinner in the dining hall. Some came from private schools. One boy said his dad was a judge. Another girl had published 2 poetry books already. Jaden sat quietly, listening. He didn't try to impress anyone, until someone asked, "What's your story, Jaden?" He thought for a moment, then said, "I wrote about silence, about the people who carry pain but never speak. I used to be one of them." The table went silent. Then one girl said, "That's really powerful." Jaden smiled, but deep down, part of him still wondered, do I truly belong here? Later that night, as Jaden walked back to his room, a man in a suit approached him outside the residence hall. "Mr. Carter?" Jaden turned. "Yes." The man extended his hand. "Dean Richard Clark." Jaden's eyes widened. "Oh, sir." "I didn't expect to relax," the dean said, chuckling. "I just wanted to say welcome. We're honored to have you here." Jaden nodded, still stunned. "I read your essay 3 times, the dean said. "It wasn't just good, it was true. You didn't just write with skill, you wrote with heart." Jaden managed to speak. "Thank you, sir. I didn't think anyone would ever say that to me." The dean placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't need anyone's permission to be great, Jaden. Just keep showing up." That night, Jaden couldn't sleep. He lay in bed. Staring at the ceiling, the campus was quiet. The world felt open. But tomorrow, he would stand in front of professors, scholars, and other students, and he would speak. He would share his voice, his truth, his Harvard moment. The sun rose gently over the Harvard campus. Birds sang softly near the window of Jaden's room in Dunster House, but Jaden didn't hear them. he was already awake. He had barely slept. The speech, the crowd, the thought of standing in front of deans, professors, contest winners, it made his stomach feel like a tight knot. He sat at the desk, Maya's note next to him, whispering her words to himself. You are already a winner. He looked in the mirror and straightened his tie. It was time. The luncheon hall was beautiful. Tall glass windows, long white tables with silverware that sparkled. Every seat had a name card. Jaden found his in the front row, next to a girl from California and a boy from New York. He looked around. People were laughing, shaking hands, sipping water like they did this every weekend. But Jaden felt out of place, like someone had opened the wrong door and let him in by accident. Then he saw Dean Clark standing at the podium, the same man who'd spoken with him on Zoom. Good afternoon, everyone, the dean began. Today we celebrate not just writing, but courage, honesty, and the voices we need most in this world. The room clapped politely. But before we begin lunch, the dean continued, I'd like to invite one special voice to the stage. A young man whose words made us stop, made us listen. Jaden's name echoed through the hall like thunder. Jaden Carter, please join us. Jaden stood slowly. His hands were cold. His chest was tight. He walked to the podium, heart racing, throat dry. He looked up, dozens of faces staring back, some smiling, some curious, some unreadable. He took a breath and began. My name is Jaden Carter. I'm from a small apartment in a loud neighborhood. My mother is sick, and my little sister draws pictures of Harvard and calls me the smart one. For most of my life, I stayed quiet. I watched. I helped. But then something happened. I found my voice. I realized that silence is heavy. And when we carry too much of it, we start to disappear.
Ow.
So I wrote about standing in line at the store while people stared. I wrote about teachers who laughed when I said Harvard. I wrote about pain, but I also wrote about hope. Because no matter where I come from, I know where I'm going. Not because someone opened the door for me, but because I decided to knock. And when no one answered, I kicked it open. He paused. The room was still. There are kids just like me, smart, strong, unseen, still waiting to be heard. I may be one person, but if my story reaches someone else who feels invisible, then I've already won. Jaden stepped back from the mic. Silence and then applause. Not just polite claps, real claps. Standing ovation, people on their feet. Some clapping, some wiping tears. Dean Clark stepped forward, smiling proudly. After the luncheon, people lined up to shake Jaden's hand. A professor from the English department said, You reminded me why I started teaching. A student from India said, I had goosebumps. Even a man from the admissions team said, We'll be watching your application very closely. Jaden nodded, overwhelmed. He didn't know what to say. He had just spoken his truth, and they had heard him. Back in his room, that evening, Jaden pulled out his notebook. He wrote, Today I didn't just speak. I was heard. He placed the notebook down and checked his phone. One message stood out from an unknown number. That speech. I don't have the words, but thank you for saying mine. Marcus Jaden stared at the screen. He hadn't expected that, but something inside him softened. Later that night, Jaden called home. Maya answered. I saw the speech on the school's Instagram. She screamed, You were amazing. His mom took the phone and whispered, Jay, I don't think I've ever been this proud. Jaden sat on the edge of the bed and let the tears fall. He had come to Harvard for a contest, but he was leaving. With something bigger, a voice, a purpose, a future, but far away. In a quiet office in Cambridge, Bill Lute, the man in the gray suit, read a printed copy of Jaden's essay again. He circled two names in red ink, Jaden Carter, Marcus D. Walker. Then he picked up the phone and made a call. Get me the files on both of them. There's more going on here than just an essay. The next morning, Jaden packed his bag and got ready to leave Harvard. His heart was full. Mind still spinning from the speech, the applause, the kind words from professors. He felt different now, not like a visitor, but like someone who could belong. as he zipped his bag shut. His phone buzzed with a new email. Subject: Confidential for your eyes only. Dear Jaden Carter, we need to speak with you privately before you return home. Please report to room 217, Harvard Admissions Hall, at 10 a.m. This matter concerns your application in a file recently discovered in our system. Do not share this message. Office of Admissions. Jaden blinked. His throat went dry. A file? What file? Was it a mistake? A problem? Did he do something wrong? He stared at the screen for a long moment, then grabbed his folder and left the room. Harvard Admissions Hall was quiet, clean marble floors, heavy doors. He knocked gently on room 217. A man opened it, a tall, serious man with gray hair and a black suit. His badge read, Director Ronald Blake, Office of Records and Integrity. Jaden Carter, the man said. Jaden nodded. Come in. Inside. The room was bright. One long table, 2 chairs. A red folder sat in the center of the desk. Jaden sat slowly. The man didn't smile. This won't take long, Director Blake said. I'll speak plainly. Yesterday, after your speech, we did a deeper review of your file. Standard procedure. Jaden's heart thudded, but in that process the man continued, We discovered a connection in our archive data systems between you and another student. He opened the red folder and pushed it toward Jaden. Jaden leaned forward, his eyes widened. A photo of Marcus Walker, his classmate. His bully. What? What does Marcus have to do with this? Jaden asked. Director Blake tapped the page. 5 years ago, both your names appeared in a shared community mentorship program under a confidential support scholarship funded by one of our Harvard outreach branches. Jaden blinked. That can't be right. I don't remember that. It was hidden in the records, Blake said. Program ended early due to lack of funding, but there's more. He pulled out another paper. This document here signed by a former outreach officer shows that too. Promising. Black students from underserved communities were recommended for early development tracking. Their names Jaden Carter and Marcus D. Walker. Jaden stared at the sheet. Why haven't I heard about this before? Because, the man said calmly, someone didn't want you to know. These files were misplaced, forgotten, or maybe buried. Jaden sat back, stunned. All this time, he and Marcus were both part of something bigger, and Marcus didn't even know. Why are you showing me this? Jaden asked. The man closed the folder. Because one of our internal investigators raised a red flag, he said. After your speech, someone tried to access your Harvard profile from an off-campus IP address. Unusual behavior. We traced it. Jaden swallowed. Who? The man paused, then said a former Harvard outreach staff member, disgraced, fired years ago. His name is Richard L. Walker. Jaden froze. Walker, he whispered. The man nodded. Yes. Marcus's father. Jaden's head spun. Marcus's father was involved in Harvard's outreach, and he tried to access Jaden's file. After the speech? But why? Jaden asked, his voice low. Possibly jealousy, the man replied, or fear, courting. 2 old reports. Mr. Walker's own son was once considered the top candidate in your program. But after the program was shut down, all tracking stopped. Jaden remembered the anger in Marcus's eyes, the way he always mocked him, challenged him. Was it because deep down Marcus knew? Was this competition personal all along? Director Blake leaned closer. We believe your application has become more than just paperwork. It's now tied to an old story. One we're still uncovering. Jaden's voice shook. Am I in trouble? No, the man said. In fact, quite the opposite. He stood up. You've shown grace, courage, and honesty. We want you to know that none of this will affect your future here. If anything, it strengthens your story. He handed Jaden a sealed envelope. Your official acceptance letter is in there. Early offer. Jaden's eyes filled with tears. But you must keep the file information confidential for now, Blake added. We're still investigating. Jaden stood slowly, holding the envelope. His dream Harvard was real. But now, there were secrets attached to it. Outside, Jaden sat under a tree and opened the letter. Congratulations, Jaden Carter. You have been selected for early admission to Harvard University. Class of 20X. He closed his eyes and let the moment sink in, but inside. Couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. Back in his hometown, Marcus sat in his bedroom, staring at his laptop. He had seen the speech, the applause, the praise, his fists clenched. He opened an old email from his dad years ago. You were always supposed to be the one, Marcus. Don't let anyone steal that from you. Marcus clicked on a hidden folder on his desktop. It was filled with documents, old letters. One of them had Caden's name on it, and something scribbled in red ink. Switch before review, he's not ready. Marcus stared at it for a long time. Then whispered, so it was never just me. The school hallway was unusually quiet that Monday morning. Jaden walked slowly. The early admission letter folded deep inside his backpack. He hadn't told anyone yet. Not even Ms. Fields. Not Amara. Not his mom. Too much was happening. Too much he didn't understand. At his locker, Jaden found a small note taped to the door. 4 words, written in sharp black marker. We need to talk. Marcus Jaden stared at it, unsure how to feel. The speech, hidden files, the name Richard Walker, Marcus's dad. The missing outreach program, all of it sat like a weight on his chest. He crumpled the note in his hand, but then slipped it into his pocket. After school, he found Marcus leaning against the fence near the old basketball court. No one else was around. Jaden walked over slowly. I got your note. Marcus didn't look at him. He just nodded. I figured you'd come, Marcus said. After what you saw, Jaden crossed his arms. So it's true. Marcus finally looked at him, his face tired, eyes heavy. Yeah, my dad used to work for that Harvard program. Said he was helping kids like us. Said I was supposed to be the chosen one, the golden kid. Jaden stayed quiet, but something happened. Marcus continued. They cut the funding, shut it all down. But not before he did something. He paused. Jaden narrowed his eyes. What did he do? Marcus reached into his backpack and pulled out a flash drive. He held it up. This has everything. Emails, letters. He tried to switch our names in the system. Back when we were both just kids, Jaden felt cold. Why? Because your test scores were rising fast. You were becoming the better candidate. But my dad, he couldn't handle that, so he changed records. Submitted my name in place of yours for early prep scholarships. Jaden's stomach dropped. All this time, I thought you hated me for no reason. Marcus laughed bitterly. I hated you because I knew deep down you earned it. I didn't, not the way you did. They stood in silence for a while. Then Jaden asked, why show me now? Marcus looked down. I watched your speech. For the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt ashamed. You stood up there and spoke like someone who belonged. You didn't fake it. You didn't lie. Jaden looked at the flash drive. What do you want me to do with this? Marcus shrugged. I don't know. Burn it. Send it to Harvard. Keep it. I needed you to know the truth. Shda took the flash drive slowly. I'm not here to destroy your future, Marcus, he said. But I won't hide the truth either. I wouldn't expect you to. Both looked away. That evening, Jaden sat at his kitchen table, staring at the flash drive. His mom walked over and placed a cup of tea in front of him. What's on your mind? She asked gently. Jaden told her everything, the file, the cover-up, Marcus's dad, the truth. She listened quietly, her face unreadable. Then she said, You've come so far, Jay, but the world will always try to shake you. What matters is what you do with the truth. Jaden looked at the flash drive again. He didn't want revenge. He wanted justice, and maybe healing. The next day, Jaden met with Ms. Fields after school. He placed the flash drive on her desk. She stared at it, then looked up. What's this? The truth, Jaden said. About what happened to Marcus. About what almost happened to me. Ms. Fields listened as Jaden explained everything. She didn't interrupt. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair and sighed deeply. This is bigger than just a school competition, she said. This is about systems. About what happens when no one's watching. Jaden nodded. What should I do? She slid the drive back to him. Send it to the Office of Admissions. But don't hide. Attach your name. Tell them why you're sending it. Jaden nodded slowly, and that night he did. He wrote, Dear Director Blake, I am sending this flash drive, not to accuse, but to clarify. Marcus Walker's father made mistakes, serious ones. But Marcus is still a kid, like me. He's hurting, confused, and carrying a weight that's not entirely his fault. I trust you'll do what's right, not just for me, but for him too. With respect, Jaden Carter. Days passed. Jaden went back to classes, back to work, back to writing in his notebook. He didn't expect to hear back quickly, but then an envelope arrived at school. Inside was a simple letter from Harvard. Dear Mr. Carter, thank you for your honesty and your bravery. We are reviewing all related materials with integrity and fairness. Your application remains untouched and is considered final, full admission with merit-based scholarship. As for Marcus Walker, our decision will come in due time. But know, your actions reflect the heart of true leadership. Welcome to Harvard, Jaden. Jaden sat in the hallway reading it, the weight finally lifting off his chest. Ms. Fields passed by and gave him a knowing smile. Everything okay? He looked up and smiled. Better than okay. Back in the classroom, Marcus was sitting quietly at his desk. He looked up as Jaden walked in. Jaden gave a small nod. Marcus returned it. Nothing more was said. But somehow, it was enough. Jaden thought the story was over. He had spoken his truth. He had earned his Harvard acceptance. He had made peace with Marcus, with his past, with himself. But something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would bring his voice far beyond the walls of his school and into the hearts of millions. It started on a Wednesday afternoon. Jaden was walking home from school when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then he remembered what happened the last time he ignored a call from Harvard. He answered, Hello, Jaden Carter? The woman asked. Yes, this is Sharon Ellis. I'm a senior producer for Voice Today, a national morning show. We came across a video clip of your Harvard speech. It's been circulating among educators on social media. We'd like to interview you. Liv. Jaden stopped walking. You want to interview me? It's on TV? Yes, she said kindly. Your words touched people. We think the country needs to hear them, Jaden stammered. I've never been on a show like that. That's okay, she said. You've already done the hard part, being real. That night, Jaden told his mom. She dropped the spoon in her hand. Wait, national television? Like real TV? Jaden laughed nervously. Yeah. They said millions. Watch it every morning. Maya gasped. Can I come? Can I wear my Harvard shirt? Jaden smiled. If they let us, you're sitting right next to me. The show flew them to New York. It was Jaden's first time in the city. Tall buildings, flashing lights, taxis honking. It felt like another world. They stayed in a hotel near the studio. Jaden barely slept. The next morning, he wore a clean shirt, the same tie from his speech, and Maya's hand-drawn pin on his jacket that read, Speak loud, big brother. Next stage, you could hear the host talking on the air, and next up, the woman said, the 17-year-old student whose emotional Harvard speech has taken the internet by storm. Jaden's hands shook. The producer gave him a thumbs dash up. Double quotes, just be yourself, she whispered. And then he was walking onto the set. Bright lights, 3 cameras, a curved glass table, 2 smiling hosts. They stood to greet him. Jaden shook their hands and sat down. You're the young man everyone's talking about, the host said with a grin. How does it feel? Jaden laughed nervously. Like a dream I'm afraid to wake up from. The woman host leaned in. Your speech, it wasn't just powerful, it was honest. Where did those words come from? Jaden took a breath. From silence, he said, "Most of my life, I didn't speak much. I just watched, listened, and survived. But I realized silence was heavy. It made me disappear. So I started writing. The words became my voice." The woman nodded, eyes glassy. "Tell us about your mother," the male host said. "You mentioned her in your speech." Jaden smiled. "She's the strongest person I know. She worked through sickness, raised 2 kids alone, and still believes in me even when I don't believe in myself. What do you want people to take away from your story?" Jaden looked directly at the camera. "I want kids who feel invisible to know they matter. So I want people to see us not just as statistics or headlines, but as dreamers, fighters, future doctors, future deans." He paused, "And I want them to know it's okay to speak up, even if your voice shakes." After the segment ended, the hosts gave him a standing ovation. Producers clapped. One camera operator wiped her eyes. Jaden stepped off the set and was immediately hugged by Maya and his mom. "You did it, Jay?" his mom whispered. "You weren't. Just seen you were heard." By the next day, the interview was everywhere. YouTube views, 1.2 million. Twitter trending, hashtag Jaden Speaks Educators, sharing clips on Facebook, celebrities retweeting, "This kid is the future." Jaden's phone wouldn't stop. Buzzing text messages, emails, opportunities. An author wanted to help him publish his essays. Nonprofit wanted him to speak to youth, and DC Harvard even called again. "We'd like you to join our new mentorship program as a student leader." Jaden smiled. "Absolutely." But not everyone was cheering. In a quiet apartment a few blocks away, Marcus watched the interview on his cracked screen. He listened to every word, then turned the phone off and sat there, thinking. Later that week, Jaden was called to the school office. Principal Harris was waiting. "You've been invited to speak at the State Student Leaders Conference next month," he said. "They want you to represent our district. Your story, your voice." Making waves, Jaden nodded slowly and then smiled. "I'll be there." As Jaden walked down the hall toward class, he passed a bulletin board. Someone had pinned up a photo of him on the Voice Today's set. A line was written underneath it in bold red letters. "He spoke for all of us." Jaden sat at his desk one evening, his room dimly lit by the soft yellow glow of the lamp. The Harvard acceptance letter was framed now, resting on the wall above his bed. His speech had gone viral. News stations were still calling. Teachers were treating him like a hero. But tonight, Jaden wasn't focused on interviews or TV shows. He was focused on the envelope. In his hand, it had been quietly slipped into his locker. No name on the front. Just one word written in messy blue ink. "Jaden." He opened it slowly. Inside was a folded sheet of notebook, paper. The handwriting was familiar. It was from Marcus. "Jaden, I wasn't going to write this. I didn't think I should. But after everything, I couldn't keep it all in anymore. You stood on that stage and told the world your truth. I spent years hiding mine. I was angry at you for reasons I didn't fully understand, but now I do. I was angry because I saw someone fighting through pain I couldn't face. Someone becoming what I should have been. If I had worked harder, if I had listened, if I hadn't let bitterness win. You earned Harvard. I didn't. My dad tried to cheat the system for me. I didn't stop him. I wanted the shortcut. You walked every hard mile and still had the strength to show kindness to me. I don't know how to fix everything, but I want to try. There's a writing contest next month. My English teacher says it's about second chances. I'm thinking of entering. You inspired that. I'm sorry for everything. Dr. Jadon." Read the letter 3 times, each word heavier than the last. He never expected Marcus to write something like this, not after all the insults, the bullying, the silence between them. But something inside Marcus had shifted. Jaden could feel it. The next day at school, Jaden walked past Marcus in the hallway. For the first time, Marcus didn't look away. He nodded, a small, silent nod. Jaden returned it, no words. But the message was clear. "I hear you too." Later that week, Ms. Fields called Jaden to her desk after class. "I heard from the Regional Education Board," she said with a proud smile. "They want to include your Harvard speech in next year's statewide English curriculum." Eyes widened. "Wait. What?" "They want students to read it, study it, learn from it." Jaden sat down, stunned. "But I'm just a high school kid," Ms. Fields smiled. "You're a high school kid who stood up, who used words like a sword and a shield. That matters." Jaden looked down, humbled. "I don't even know what comes next." "You don't need to," she said. "Just keep being honest." That night, Jaden sat with Maya on the couch. She was coloring a picture of him standing on a stage with a crowd around him. "I'm going to make this into a book one day," she said proudly. Jaden smiled. "Then I want you to be the illustrator." She grinned. "Deal." Then came an unexpected call. Not from Harvard, not from a TV station, but from a local elementary school principal. "We'd love for you to speak to our fourth graders," the woman said. "They've been writing essays about people they admire, and your name keeps coming up." Jaden chuckled. "Seriously?" "Seriously," she said. "You've become more than just a student. You're a symbol of hope." The next day, Jaden stood in front of 30 small kids in tiny desks, most of them squirming and swinging their feet. He smiled nervously. "Hi, I'm Jaden, and I used to sit in a room just like this." One little boy raised his hand. "Did anyone laugh at your dreams?" Jaden paused. "Yes," he said. "A lot of people did, even grown-ups. But I didn't stop dreaming." One other girl asked, "What made you keep going?" Jaden looked at her, then said softly, "My little sister. My mom, and the voice inside me that whispered, 'You're more than what they see.'" The kids clapped, loud and wild. Jaden laughed, but something inside him shifted. This impact was more powerful than any viral video that evening. Jaden received another message. It was from Marcus again. "I submitted my essay. It's called The Other Side of the Mirror. Win or lose, I just wanted to say thanks for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself." Jaden stared at the message and smiled. He typed back one line, "Proud of you, man." Graduation day had finally come. The sun rose bright and warm over the school. Parents filled the chairs. Teachers wore proud smiles. Students straightened their gowns and practiced their names in their heads. Jaden stood backstage, holding his cap in one hand and Maya's latest drawing in the other. It was him standing under the word Harvard. "With wings on his back, you flew," she had told him, "because you stopped being scared." He smiled quietly and slipped it into his pocket. Ms. Fields approached him with a soft smile. "Are you ready?" she asked. Jaden took a deep breath. "Not really," he whispered. She gently adjusted his tassel. "You don't need to be ready. Just walk forward." As Jaden walked onto the stage, cheers filled the field. His mom stood in the front row with Maya, clapping, tears in her eyes. Mr. Grayson was filming with his old camera. Amara was smiling from the second row, mouthing, "You made it, even." Marcus clapped quietly but sincerely. When the principal called his name, Jaden Carter, valedictorian and full Harvard scholarship recipient, Jaden froze for a split second. He had never imagined that title would be attached to his name. But here he was, walking forward after the ceremony. While hugs and handshakes filled the field, Jaden found an envelope tucked into his graduation folder. No return address, no stamp, just one word on the front, Jaden. He opened it carefully. Inside was a letter written in familiar handwriting. "Jaden, by the time you read this, you'll be walking toward the rest of your life. You won't remember every moment from these last few years, but I hope you never forget this. You changed the way people look at quiet kids. You proved that truth matters. You gave a voice to kids like me. I didn't win the essay contest. That's okay. I wrote it anyway. I wrote it because you showed me that words can heal. I'm going to community college in the fall, studying education. I want to help kids find their voice early. Thank you for standing tall, even when people tried to push you down. You didn't just dream of Harvard. You reminded all of us that it's okay to dream big. Marcus Jaden folded the letter slowly. He stood under the school tree where he used to eat lunch alone. Now, a small plaque had been placed at its base. This spot is dedicated to every student who was ever told they weren't enough. In honor of Jaden Carter, class of 20XX. Later that night, in their small apartment, his mom made dinner, rice and beans, just the way Jaden liked. They didn't have much. The table was full of love. Maya taped his graduation photo on. "The fridge, you're going to change the world," she said. Jaden smiled and touched her forehead. "No," he whispered.
"Lady Wheeler."
The next morning, Jaden sat down at the kitchen table with a blank sheet of paper. He wrote, "Dear future me, no matter where you go, never forget the aisle at the grocery store. The cracked sidewalks, the jokes from the teacher, the silence. In the classroom, because those things made you, they'll remind you to always open doors for the ones still waiting outside. You didn't get here alone, and you were never invisible. You were always meant to be seen."